Imagine everything you thought you knew about sexual attraction was wrong. Not just slightly off, but fundamentally, profoundly wrong. What if that undeniable spark, that intense pull you feel towards someone, isn't destiny or pure chemistry, but a mirror reflecting your deepest, unhealed wounds? Carl Jung uncovered a truth so dark, so unsettling, that it will force you to re-examine every relationship you've ever had. Get ready, because what you're about to hear will change how you view love, desire, and yourself forever. Welcome back to Stoic Love, the place where we dare to confront uncomfortable truths to build stronger, more conscious connections. Today, we're diving into the work of one of psychology's giants, Carl Jung, and his chilling yet ultimately liberating perspective on sexual attraction. For years, we've been told it's all about chemistry. That mysterious, electric feeling that makes your heart pound, your body hum with anticipation, and your mind obsessively replay a person's voice, their smile, or their captivating presence. We're conditioned to believe that this intense, almost magnetic pull is a beautiful, natural sign of profound connection, of raw desire, of simply being alive. But Carl Jung, with his penetrating gaze into the human psyche, would look you straight in the eye and deliver a stark, unsettling truth. No, it's not just chemistry. It's not magic. It's your shadow. According to Jung, sexual attraction isn't merely about love, romance, or even physical compatibility. It's a psychological explosion, a profound internal event that often reveals far more about your unhealed wounds, your unresolved past, and your deepest insecurities than it does about your conscious wants or desires. Because when you find yourself drawn to someone with such overwhelming intensity that you feel utterly powerless to resist, Jung would argue, that isn't necessarily love in its purest form. It's often a powerful projection of your inner world onto another. Jung theorized that within every one of us resides an unconscious opposite, a hidden, emotionally charged inner figure. For men, this is the anima, representing the feminine qualities they've often suppressed or haven't fully developed within themselves. For women, it's the animus, embodying the masculine traits they may have denied or left unintegrated. These inner figures aren't just abstract psychological concepts. They are vibrant, powerful forces, alive with unfulfilled potential and unresolved emotional energy. And here's the truly terrifying yet revelatory part. When you encounter someone in the external world who perfectly reflects your inner anima or animus, your entire psyche lights up with recognition. It's an almost primal scream from your unconscious, declaring, "There, that person holds everything you lack, everything you've suppressed, everything you need to become whole." So you don't merely fall in love with them. You, in a profound sense, fall in love with yourself, or more accurately, with the long-lost, never-met part of yourself that this person seems to embody. This is precisely why sexual attraction so often feels utterly irrational, defying all logic and common sense. You might intellectually know that the person is unavailable, perhaps dangerous, manipulative, or even overtly toxic for you. Yet, the emotional pull, the magnetic force, is undeniably stronger than any rational thought. You feel addicted, haunted, completely spellbound. This is because your unconscious mind, in its desperate quest for completion and wholeness, has tragically mistaken them for the missing piece of you. Now, pause and imagine the implications of this in a world where the art of seduction has been subtly and sometimes overtly weaponized, where individuals, either consciously or instinctively, learn to mimic your deepest, most private fantasies, without even fully understanding what they're doing. Consider, for instance, how some women intuitively learn that the most potent way to capture a man isn't through overt aggression or dominance, but through a mirroring effect, by becoming the living embodiment of his unconscious desire, his unfulfilled anima. Because if a man has never genuinely confronted his inner anima, if he's never had the courage to look into his own psychological mirror and profoundly ask, why do I crave what I crave? What am I truly seeking? Then he is not consciously choosing his partners. Instead, he is being chosen by his own unhealed wound. And if she, whether intentionally or not, knows how to skillfully play that archetypal role, he will almost inevitably surrender. He will call it love. He will feel it as destiny. But in Jung's stark reality, it's often just a powerful, compelling projection. She isn't truly the one. She is, in that moment, merely a vivid, captivating mirror. Jung articulated this chilling insight when he said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But in the specific, often turbulent, case of sexual attraction driven by the shadow, by those unintegrated, darker aspects of ourselves, the transformation isn't always healthy or constructive. It can quickly become obsessive, destructive, and ultimately reductive. It can diminish a person, reducing them to nothing more than the sum of their unfulfilled desires, chasing an illusion." This, then, is the darkest, most profound truth about attraction. You are not always or even often drawn to the people who are genuinely good for you. Instead, you are drawn with an almost irresistible force to those who perfectly complete your internal narrative, your unfinished psychological story. And sometimes, tragically, your internal story is a profound, unresolved tragedy. Let me paint a picture with an example. You might be a man who, in his formative years, never truly felt seen, affirmed, or deeply loved by his mother. Consequently, when you encounter a woman who is emotionally cold, who artfully withdraws affection, and offers love only when you intensely chase or prove yourself worthy, your entire being can suddenly feel alive. You might mistakenly believe, this is it, this is the one. But what you are unconsciously attempting to do is to rewrite a painful past, to win a battle for love and validation that you tragically lost in childhood. This is the very essence of a compulsion born from unhealed emotional trauma. It doesn't always stem from physical abuse, but often from deeply ingrained emotional patterns that were never properly processed or healed. The woman, in this scenario, becomes your unconscious battlefield. You desperately try to earn what should have been freely given, to secure the love that was withheld. And when she, predictably, denies it or makes you work for it, the pain you feel is not just fresh hurt. It's the echo of an old wound. This intensified pain, paradoxically, only amplifies your desire for her, cementing the cycle. Now, let's flip the mirror, because this dynamic is universal. There are also women who are not consciously seeking love, but a sense of power, validation, or control. They don't necessarily want to be deeply loved in the traditional sense. They crave to be relentlessly chased, worshipped, and obsessed over. They learn, often unconsciously, to weaponize their sexuality, not out of malicious evil, but frequently as a defense mechanism born from their own unhealed pain. Their own inner shadow was never shown safe, consistent affection. So now it fiercely seeks dominance and control through the conduit of desire. When a man falls helplessly at her feet, consumed by infatuation, she feels a profound sense of aliveness and validation. Until, that is, he dares to ask for genuine emotional intimacy. Then, she almost invariably runs, because the moment the relationship threatens to become real, the carefully constructed illusion of her power begins to crumble. Sexual attraction, therefore, is not always about authentic connection. Sometimes, it is a sophisticated, deeply insidious trap, a psychological snare, where your deepest, most unmet emotional needs cleverly disguise themselves as profound, romantic longing. Carl Jung did not share these insights to instill fear of desire within us. On the contrary, he revealed them to awaken us, to make us profoundly conscious of the intricate workings of our own desires, to compel us to ask ourselves, who does my soul truly reach for when my mind is asleep, when my defenses are down? Who do I crave with such intensity? And more importantly, why? Because if you never genuinely answer that question, you will, with startling predictability, continue to choose the same person, the same emotional pattern, over and over again, albeit in 100 different bodies. You'll call it fate, destiny, or simply your type. But in Jung's profound understanding, it's often just your unexamined shadow tirelessly pulling the strings. So, here is a truth that few are truly prepared to handle. Sometimes, the person you desire with the most intense, undeniable force is the exact person whose presence is destined to shatter you. Not because they are inherently evil, but because your unconscious mind, in its desperate, misguided attempt at healing, wants to recreate your original wound, hoping that this time you will finally possess the strength and awareness to survive it, to transcend it. That, my friends, is not love in its conscious form. That is raw, karmic repetition. And karma is not a punishment handed down from above. It is, fundamentally, a relentless pattern of repetition, a recurring lesson, until you finally, consciously, learn what you need to learn. This is the essence of the darkest truth. The darkness isn't inherently in the other person. It resides within you. It's in what you unconsciously project onto others, what you relentlessly chase, and what you desperately try to run from within yourself. Sexual attraction can indeed be a sacred, beautiful force, but only when you have the courage to peer behind the curtain and identify the demon, the unhealed shadow that might be driving your desires. Only when you honestly ask yourself, is this genuine love, or am I merely trying to finish an unfinished, painful story from my past? You might believe you're firmly in control. You might think you're consciously choosing who to flirt with, who to date, who to pursue. But what if every move you make in your romantic life isn't truly made by your conscious, rational self? Carl Jung issued a dire warning. The unconscious mind is an omnipresent, tirelessly active force, and the most dangerous aspect of it, you often have absolutely no idea when it's making critical choices for you. Let me share a compelling real-life story to illustrate this. There was a man, highly successful in his career, outwardly emotionally intelligent, and respected by everyone who knew him. Yet every single time he genuinely fell in love, it was with a woman who, without fail, emotionally rejected him in a devastating way. One woman abruptly left him for someone else, without explanation. Another ghosted him completely after a period of intense intimacy. Yet another cruelly mocked him the moment he dared to show any vulnerability. Different women, different faces, yet the same agonizing story. Logically, his conscious mind knew these women were not healthy or right for him. He even confided in his closest friends, saying, "She's toxic for me. I know it." But despite this rational awareness, he kept going back, kept chasing, kept hoping. Why? Because his unconscious mind wasn't trying to find genuine love. It was desperately trying to resolve a deep, excruciating pain. You see, this man grew up with a distant, emotionally cold mother, a woman who rarely showed affection, who made him feel largely invisible and unworthy of consistent love. So now, as an adult, his psyche, driven by that unhealed wound, was ceaselessly seeking to recreate that same familiar feeling of emotional unavailability and rejection, but with a desperate underlying hope to fix it this time, to finally win the love that was withheld. He wasn't truly chasing women. He was, in a profound sense, chasing his mother's ghost, a phantom of unfulfilled childhood longing. This is how sexual attraction becomes a relentless, self-sabotaging psychological loop. You are not addicted to the person themselves. You are addicted to the wound they perfectly represent, to the illusory hope of finally winning, finally healing that ancient pain. And that, in essence, is the insidious trap Jung tirelessly tried to warn us about. Sexual energy is arguably one of the most powerful and primal forces within the human psyche. It's not solely about pleasure or procreation. It's inextricably tied to our deepest sense of identity, our fundamental need for safety, our drive for power, and our craving for validation. And when that potent energy becomes entangled and fused with your deepest, most unhealed emotional pain, it becomes incredibly magnetic, explosive, and profoundly dangerous. Now, let's extend this to women. There are countless women who find themselves repeatedly drawn to emotionally unavailable men. Men who are often charming, exciting, and perhaps even outwardly dominant, but inwardly cold, detached, and often subtly cruel. They find themselves asking questions like, "Why am I only attracted to men who hurt me?" Or, "I seem to lose interest the moment a guy is too nice or too available." Does this resonate? It's not a fundamental flaw in your personality. It's often a clear sign of deep-seated emotional programming. Many of these women were taught, either explicitly or implicitly in their upbringing, that love must be hard-earned, that being ignored means you need to try harder to gain attention. That rejection is merely a challenge to overcome. So, the very moment a man demonstrates indifference or emotional distance, her attraction often spikes dramatically. Why? Because her unconscious mind instantly recognizes it. There it is, the familiar pain. Let's try to finally fix it this time. And if that man, whether consciously manipulative or simply playing out his own unconscious patterns, knows how to exploit this dynamic, he often becomes her all-consuming obsession. That is not love. That is inner chaos, desperately seeking a savior. But it doesn't stop there. Let's flip the dynamic once more. There are also women, often modern, intelligent women, who consciously or unconsciously weaponize this very truth. They come to realize that their sexuality can exert a far greater control over a man than logic or reason ever could. Not because they are inherently evil, but often because, for them, it works. They learn that strategically withholding emotional availability, while simultaneously offering intense physical seduction, creates an unbreakable hook, a bond far stronger than most men can resist or break. They expertly mimic the man's anima, becoming the living embodiment of his fantasy, rather than a real, complex woman. And the more the man desperately chases her, the more powerful and validated she feels. This isn't genuine romance. It's a subtle form of psychological domination, cleverly disguised as passion. Jung would term this a projection trap. The man doesn't truly love her. He loves what she represents, his missing half, his unfulfilled longing. But here's where the dynamic becomes truly horrifying. She doesn't truly love him either. She loves the profound sense of control she wields. She loves seeing him lose himself in his pursuit of her, because it often gives her back something she herself lost long ago, a sense of power, a feeling of safety, or even a subtle form of revenge against past hurts. This is the darkest corner of sexual attraction, a place where two individuals are not meeting with open, vulnerable hearts, but rather with broken mirrors reflecting each other's unresolved pain. Where true intimacy is absent, replaced by a carefully constructed performance. Where both sides are unconsciously using the other to mend something broken from their past. And the more intense, the more passionate it feels, the more inherently dangerous it becomes. Because if you do not consciously know and integrate your own shadow, it will inevitably use the magnetic force of attraction to drag you into a hell of repetition, all the while wearing a seductive smile. Carl Jung did not present these profound truths to frighten you away from relationships or to make you fear desire itself. He presented them because true, conscious love cannot exist without an equivalent degree of self-awareness. You are compelled to look honestly at the people you are drawn to and ask yourself deeply uncomfortable questions. What do they remind me of from my past? Do I feel genuinely safe with them, or merely intensely addicted to the dynamic? Am I my authentic self around them, or do I become a version they seem to implicitly want? Because here is the undeniable truth. Attraction is not always, or even primarily, a sign of genuine compatibility. Sometimes, it is a potent warning signal from your psyche, indicating that it's desperately trying to finish an old, painful story, rather than consciously choosing to start a truly new, healthy one. That's why people so often lament, "Why do I always fall for the same type?" Or, "I knew they were bad for me, but I just couldn't stop myself." The answer to these recurring patterns is not found in logic or rational thought. It resides deep within the unconscious. Jung's theory of individuation teaches us that we must embark on the vital, lifelong process of integrating all parts of ourselves, the anima, the animus, and especially the shadow, before we can truly make conscious, healthy choices in love. Otherwise, we remain mere puppets, with unconscious desire constantly pulling the strings, and we mistakenly label it as fate. So, if you find yourself repeatedly chasing emotionally unavailable women, or obsessively pursuing manipulative men, or consistently getting entangled in chaotic, lust-driven relationships, you absolutely must pause and ask yourself, what part of me is truly choosing this? And why does this familiar pattern feel so much like home? Until you honestly answer that question, you will, without fail, keep waking up in the same emotional nightmare, merely with a different face lying beside you. Because the most profound truth is this: we are not fundamentally attracted to people. We are attracted to the unresolved emotions, the unhealed patterns, the unfinished stories that those people happen to trigger within us. And in that internal chaos, the very concept of love tragically transforms into a relentless battlefield. You don't simply attract what you consciously want. You attract what you are. Specifically, what you are still carrying within you, often unconsciously. And if you are still carrying deep wounds that you have never genuinely healed, they will inevitably speak louder than your conscious words, louder than your stated values, and certainly louder than your logic. This is the darkest, most profound truth about sexual attraction. It's not primarily about finding the right person out there. It's about uncovering what your pain truly desires to resolve within you. Let that profound truth truly sink in. Most people naively believe they are falling in love with someone's admirable qualities, their captivating eyes, their soothing voice, their brilliant intelligence, their vibrant energy. But what if you are, in reality, falling in love with their pattern? The pattern that perfectly mirrors your own unfinished story. The one where you weren't truly chosen. The one where you felt you constantly had to beg for attention or validation. the one where genuine love always felt just agonizingly out of reach. Jung gravely warned that if you fail to make the unconscious conscious, it will inevitably rule your entire life, and you will mistakenly call it fate. Let's consider another example. Imagine you're a man who consistently falls for intensely emotional, highly seductive women who ignite something primal, something almost overwhelming within you. You convince yourself, this is pure chemistry, this is true passion. But then, without fail, every single time, you inevitably end up feeling emotionally drained, deeply confused, and utterly broken. That, my friend, is not passion. That is a form of emotional possession. You weren't truly falling for a woman. You were falling headfirst into your own unexamined shadow. Perhaps you've never genuinely felt powerful or truly worthy in your life. Maybe you grew up internalizing the belief that your worth was solely derived from being constantly needed or desired by others. So now, as an adult, you find yourself relentlessly chasing women who, in some subtle way, reflect back your deepest insecurity, the gnawing fear of not being enough. And when they temporarily validate you, you feel an intoxicating rush, like a god. But the moment they pull away, the moment they withdraw their attention, you plummet into feeling utterly worthless. That is not love. That is a powerful, self-destructive addiction. Now, let's look at women again. There are women who repeatedly fall for emotionally cold, often subtly dominant men. Men who strategically withhold affection, treating it like a precious, earned prize. And every time he glances away, every time he remains aloof, it feels like an irresistible challenge. Maybe if I just prove I'm good enough, he'll finally choose me, truly see me. You weren't drawn to him because he's inherently exciting or a good match. You were drawn to him because he powerfully reminds you of the man who never truly saw or validated you, perhaps your father or your first significant heartbreak. So, what does your psyche, in its desperate unconscious wisdom, attempt to do? It tries to finish that agonizing, unfinished story. It hopes that this man, this time, will finally provide the closure, the validation, the love that your father, or that past relationship, never did. But he won't, because he's not your father. And this isn't genuine healing. It's a painful, repetitive cycle. This is precisely what Jung termed a repetition compulsion. You find yourself unconsciously recreating the same emotional pain over and over again, until you finally, through sheer exhaustion or profound insight, become fully conscious of it. And the very moment you achieve that consciousness, the powerful, intoxicating spell breaks. Because here's what most people never truly realize. Sexual attraction can be profoundly manipulated and amplified by unhealed trauma. The more familiar the wound feels, the more intense, the more destined the desire becomes. You call it a powerful spark, but in a deeper, more painful sense, it's often a lingering scream from your past, echoing through your present relationships. That's why the most toxic, destructive relationships are often the most incredibly difficult to walk away from. Not because you truly love the other person, but because you are so deeply, emotionally entangled, bound by invisible strings of unhealed pain and unresolved longing. Now you may be asking, so what's the solution? Do we give up on love entirely? Do we fear attraction forever? Absolutely not. But you must, with unwavering commitment, stop assuming that mere attraction automatically signifies alignment, compatibility, or true love. Instead, you must become a fearless investigator of your own desires. Ask yourself deeply uncomfortable questions. Why do I feel so intensely pulled to this particular person? What specific emotions do they trigger in me? Joy, peace, or perhaps a familiar anxiety or desperation? Is this attraction genuinely stemming from a place of inner wholeness, or from a deep-seated emptiness and lack within myself? Because if your desire is primarily originating from a place of profound lack, it will always, inevitably, seek to fill an internal void. And that gaping hole, that inner emptiness, will never, ever be truly filled by another person. It can only be filled by you, through your own courageous journey of self-discovery and healing. Jung firmly believed that the true path to genuine conscious love begins with the process of individuation, the lifelong journey of consciously integrating your shadow, acknowledging and healing your wounds, and withdrawing your unconscious projections from others, so that when you choose to love, you are not desperately clinging, but consciously, freely choosing to share your already established wholeness. Real, transformative love truly begins when you cease needing someone else to magically fix your past and, instead, begin to live fully present in the now. That is when sexual attraction, in all its raw power, transforms from a force of chaos into a source of profound clarity. Because you are no longer compulsively chasing people who make you feel the painful echoes of your trauma. Instead, you find yourself naturally drawn to individuals who beautifully reflect your journey of healing, your growing wholeness, and your inner peace. And here's what's terrifyingly, exquisitely beautiful about that transformation. Those genuinely healthy connections. They won't make your heart race with anxiety or panic. They won't keep you awake at night, consumed by gnawing doubts about whether you are truly enough. Instead, they will feel calm, deeply grounded, perhaps even a little boring at first, because your nervous system has become so accustomed to the relentless storm of unhealed trauma and drama that genuine peace will initially feel utterly unfamiliar, even unsettling. But give it time. Allow yourself to acclimate, because peace isn't truly boring. It's simply foreign to a nervous system accustomed to chaos. Until, that is, you consciously choose to make it your new, deeply cherished home. So, the next time your heart pounds intensely around someone, pause. Take a deep breath, and honestly ask yourself, is this genuine excitement and joyful connection? Or is this, in a subtle, insidious way, fear in disguise, wrapped in the alluring cloak of desire? Because true love, the kind of love Jung yearned for us to find, doesn't always look like a raging inferno. Sometimes, it looks like profound stillness, like unwavering safety, like unvarnished truth. And that is the love born from the conscious integration of the self, the love that doesn't trap you in endless cycles, but ultimately, profoundly frees you. So, before you fall deeply in love with them, first, fall deeply in love with the unhealed parts of you that are still silently screaming for attention. Listen to them. Acknowledge them. Heal them with fierce compassion. And then, from that place of profound wholeness, consciously choose love. Not out of desperation, not out of longing, but out of your fully integrated self. That, and only that, is how you truly escape the darkest, most compelling truth of sexual attraction. Not by rejecting the power of desire, but by bravely understanding and mastering its complex, often whispered voice. If this video has made you rethink your entire relationship history, if it has made you uncomfortable in the best possible way, then please hit the like button. Let us know that this kind of vital, consciousness-raising content needs to exist and reach more people. Comment below with your biggest realization or insight from this video. And if you have ever loved someone who, in hindsight, represented your past pain, share how you found the courage and awareness to begin to break that cycle. We're not just building a channel here at Stoic Love. We're actively building a community for emotional revolution and profound personal transformation. So, subscribe, share this video with someone who genuinely needs to hear this truth, and always remember, you don't attract what you consciously want. You attract what you haven't yet healed. Make that healing your ultimate power.